Hi guys, it's Clarice and welcome to another video tutorial with me. In today's video, we are continuing on in our August series of scenic views. And so I hope you guys are excited for this one. Last week we did like a seascape. Today we're going to do sort of like a seascape, but with coconut trees in the horizon and someone laying on a hammock. So hope you guys are excited. Let's begin. I'm going to walk you through all my materials that I have here. So I'm using Canson watercolor paper right here, and I have just outlined it with some masking tape, and this way I get a nice white border when I am finished. I have my my palette by Lisi Arts. If you like her work, she is on Instagram. I am listing all the supplies below, so feel free to click on those links if you are interested in knowing what I'm using. For my brushes, I have my Vinci Mop number 1, Silver Black Velvet number 4, and then I'm using my White Night watercolor paints. We have bright blue, we have violet, we have carmine, cadmium red light, and then last but not least we have black. I have two little pots of water, and I have paper towel handy. I know it's kind of dirty, but just in case I need to dab any of my brushes, so I have that handy. And in fact, you know what? Because this is like a scenic view, we're going to need to kind of dampen the area before we begin. So I'm going to introduce also the flat brush by Zen Arts. And keeping that aside, and I think we are about ready to begin. Oh, actually, for those who don't have carmine, the quinacridone rose might be a nice substitute. I personally like that better. I might end up using that. I have it to the side, but it's just on a palette and it's massively huge, so I'm just going to keep it off to the side. There we go. All right, so I think we are now ready to begin. So I've zoomed in a tad bit just so you can see what I am doing a little better, and we are going to start off by kind of mixing some color on here. Right now I just don't have any color. I'm just getting some water onto my palette, and we're going to start off because the top of the sky is going to be a purple fading off into this really pretty pink, and then fading off into a little bit of the cadmium red light, which is kind of like an orange, and then going back into purple and then black. All right, so let's do the background first, and then we're going to go in with the black and add the coconut trees and all these other little details. Okay, great. So for this first purple, I am going to get in a mix of the quinacridone rose. I did tell you I might use it, so it gives me like a nice pinky hue, which I love. So we're going to use the quinacridone rose as a flat lay before we go in and add any more added color to our scenery. So I'm just getting a consistency of maybe like 70-30. I just want the whole area to be damp, and I'm going to give it a nice pink glow. Then we will go in with the purple and have it blend in nicely. All right, so just getting some of that pink in here, making sure I've got enough. Perfect. And now we're going to go in and add the color. So using my brush, I'm just going to lightly wet the whole area. And I want to go to about maybe a little more than half. And as I'm going lower, I can just get water and just kind of phase it out for now. Just adding more of the pink at the top. Just a couple of strokes at the bottom. Just phasing it out here. Alright, so I've got that. Now next I'm going to get my mop brush and I'm going to mix in some hues. So I'm going to get the purple, the violet that I have. I'm getting some quinacridone rose, and here's some violet. Perfect. This is the kind of purple that I want. That's why I like using the quinacridone rose, because it gives me like this nice purple, which blends in with the pink, well, the quinacridone rose really nicely. Perfect. So now that I have this, I'm going to start off by adding color at the top. And because this area is damp already, it's going to give us a nice transition into the pink. And I want the tops to be a lot darker, so I'm just going to make sure that I have extra color of the purple just at the top. So mixing in a little bit more just so I can have a darker consistency. I'm just going to add some strands, well, strokes rather. Now that I've got that in, I'm just going to take off most of the color from my brush. I'm getting my quinacridone rose and just mixing that hue on here. And I want the first consistency that I lay down to be a lot thicker. So maybe like a 60-40. And I want that to blend in nicely with the purple that we have. Now, time is of the essence here because you can see how my edges are not as blending in quite nicely because it's drying off. So you need to get this all in before things dry off too soon. And don't worry if it, I mean, I'm using Canson watercolor paper, and by watercolor I mean like it's not cotton at all, or maybe I think like 30% cotton if I'm not mistaken, which is very less. But if you were you're using 100% cotton, I believe the dampness stays on longer. So this is why we are rushing here for this. So now that I have this, I'm going to go in and get some of my cadmium right here, and I just want a tiny bit of it, and I just want to add that in here. This is going to be that area right there. And then after we've added the cadmium, and you can see that really pretty blend, right? We're going to go back in here. It's slightly dried up, and we're going to add more of the purple. So I'm mixing more of the quinacridone rose, and I'm going to add more purple. And I want that nice, beautiful blend, and then maybe even take some of that violet and just add it to the edges so that it doesn't look like it's like an abrupt flat lay of color, but we're going from dark purple to like light purple into this nice blend here. And now how much water you have, how much color you have, all of this plays a huge role in this blending bit here. And we don't want anything to look like straight lines. We want it to be a nice blend. So I'm just going in with just water on my brush, and I'm just kind of adding a couple of strokes here and there. And I want that nice, sweet, organic blend of pink into orange. So you can see all the lines are kind of blending in really nicely. And again, if you need to highlight or darken any areas, you can just wait for it to dry a little bit and then go in and add a bit more color. But for now, I think I'm really liking how this looks. I might even add a little bit of this purpley stuff coming out in this end here, just to kind of give it more of a natural look, so it doesn't look like just like a plain gradient, but we've got a nice blend. So feel free to kind of touch that around and kind of add whatever details you need to add into the sky. And it will transition as beautiful clouds. So you watch me again, I am just washing off my brush, taking off most of the water, and then I'm just going in and I am smoothing out my clouds in my sky. And I've got my nice transition, and I like how this is looking, so I'm going to leave this for now, and we're going to move on to the lower half of this, and we're going to transition back into purple, the purpley quinacridone rose, and then give it like a nice dark horizon before we end off at the bottom. So let's start mixing for that. So back again with the mop brush. I'm going to get some water from my clean pot, and we're going to mix in some. Actually, before we do that, let's go in with the number 4 and just add a couple of strokes within the quinacridone that we've just laid down. And you notice that I took the color directly from my color cake, and that's because I wanted to add this in while it's still damp so that it gives us a darker hue. Alright, so now that we have that, we are first going to use this to dampen the area, then we'll use the number 1 to add the color. So let me mix the color first so that we have it ready. So quinacridone and rose again, and some of the violet to get our nice little purple that we have. And this consistency is good enough for me. So I'm going to get this brush and dampen this area here. Perfect. Now that I have my purple, I'm just going to go in and just add that in. And you can see how when you add color within an area of that's been dampened, you get that nice cauliflowering effect almost, which is so watercolor and so pretty. So I'm just going to make sure that I have a good enough amount here before I stop blending. So let's just leave it at that. You know what, just adding a couple of hues of the purple off to the side just to give it like some nice darks and lights. I'm just going to do that from this side and push the color, play with the color, moving it around a little bit. Darkest hue off to the side, that is, and then some of over here as well. Maybe even get some color directly from the palette and just kind of adding it in. All right, perfect. So now I'm just going to use the remainder of this color and wash it onto the rest of my sheet here. Why waste color when we are pretty much using this for the whole bit, right? I don't like wasting color. So just adding that all around, smoothing it out, perfect. And now we're going to add more of the darker hues off to the side. So I'm just going to get some more of that purple, some more of the quinacridone rose maybe. Oh, and what we didn't use was the bright blue, because the bright blue with the purple also gives you like this beautiful shade, which we should have been using. So I'm just going to add these little lines and strokes here and there, because these are going to look like the reflection of the water because of the sun in the background sort of thing. And again, we're using this while it is damp because it's giving us a nice flare, and that's what we need, especially at this point. So I'm getting some blue directly from there, mixing it in here, and I'm going to add a little bit more of the blue happening, especially at the base here at the bottom. And I'm swishing the color around, trying to make it seem like there's waves. Again, mixing some of that purpley bit that we have and adding it to the bottom. And anytime you feel like there's too much color, you want to take some color off, you can just take your brush, making sure that there's no water on it, and then just swipe it off or swipe it away. I just want there to be a darker hue at the edges at the bottom, so I'm going back in and I'm just adding, almost maybe I'm going to be dabbing at this point because it might give me a nicer effect. Let's experiment and see, shall we? Because again, like I've mentioned in my previous videos, scenic view videos, my thing is mainly watercolor florals. And so this is something I'm trying my hand at, and we are learning together. So learning together and having fun, because learning should always be a fun process. Otherwise, no one wants to do something that isn't quite as fun, right? That is my motto when I do watercolor, typically. All right, so perfect. I'm really liking all the flaring up that's happening at the bottom. So now we're going to allow this to dry just a tad bit. We're going to be focusing on the black areas that we need to sort of go in and paint, and we'll use the number 4 for that. So taking the number 4, I'm going to go ahead and get some of the black. We're going to mix some of the black onto this over here, and we're just going to freehand what we're drawing in. Okay, so just making sure that I've got enough water so that it's not dry, but at the same time the consistency is nice and dark. We're going to go ahead and start painting the bottom first. So let's just sweep this across where the orange and the purple meet. And it's okay if it's not straight. Give it a little, make sure that it's slightly bumpy. And it's fine if it's not straight at the bottom either. And then we can even add like a couple of like strands like that, strokes like that, to kind of indicate that it is reflecting in the water. And let's just go all the way across before we decide where to place our coconut trees. All right. And then these ones, you can even like give it a little bit of like texture at the top so it looks like there's plants off in the horizon. And then let's just make this going down this way. And again, a couple of like strokes just like that. What we should have done was added a little bit of orange at the bottom too. In hindsight, I am thinking, because that reflection in the water. And now that we've already added the black, it might be a bit too late. But let's see what we can do later on. If I touch on it later on, if I remember, let's just finish this bit first and see what happens. So I'm just adding some of these strokes in. I'm going to add a couple more strokes in over here, just like very tiny bits off to the edges as well. And then I think now we're ready to do our coconut trees. So are you ready? So for the coconut trees, I think we'll make some, we'll have one here and one here, and then maybe just one off, showing off at like the side for visual interest. So let's do one happening here. So it's narrow at the top and thick at the bottom, right? And you paint the whole thing in. That's the beauty of these little features that you add, silhouettes, because it's pretty much like all black. You don't have to worry about certain areas being light or what have you. Let's do another one here. And continuing on with adding these right. This one I'll just add the strokes happening only on the one side. And again, feel free to use a thinner brush if you feel more comfortable using the thinner one. And I'm just going to give the inner bits of this more color so you can see the detail only on the edges. You can even just like paint in all this area here if you're not that great with doing the coconut trees, and then just give the the edges like details like this. And that's an easy way to sort of do your coconut tree, right? All right, so moving on, we're gonna do this coconut tree on this side, and I think we're almost there, guys. So same thing that we have done here, we're gonna mimic on this side, and this time, let's try and make our coconut tree leaves. Give it some curvature. One down this way, maybe another here, and then we just go in and add our strokes. Now, because we've done the first one already, it might just help to kind of make this a time lapse, although I think if you've missed the first one, because if it wasn't recording for the first one, let's just keep this one going so you have an idea for those who have never tried a coconut tree leaf or palm. Would you call it palm? No, that's a completely different tree. I'm just not sure if you actually call the leaves on a coconut tree, because they're so like the whole stem a leaf, or just a leaf. Okay, I'm not making any sense. Let's not have this conversation. Okay, moving on, we're just kind of continuing on with this nice little linear stroke. And let's do one here. And these can be fanning out like this. And very thin at the bottom there, and then thicker as you go down. So we clearly need to do one more, and then we can always paint the inner bits as well. So don't forget that. Oh, my hand is shaking now. So whether you like to do it from the stem out or in, that is your preference. Like, go with that flow and make sure you can turn your paper. Remember, you can turn your paper around if you find it hard to kind of maneuver or paint or what have you. But you can get this done. So now I'm just going to paint the inner bits here, giving it a little bit of that jaggedy edge so that the painting, the black painting that I'm doing of the inner sides don't look very abrupt. Giving this one another little branch. Yes, branch. I think branch is right. Perfect. Now shape your coconut trees, I guess, any which way you want. If you don't want too much happening, you can actually stop. Doesn't have to be like a nice full looking coconut tree, because maybe these ones, like, stuff fell off and it wasn't as full looking. But yes, this is the whole idea. Now we add the hammock with the guy, and then we are done. Oh, actually, before we add the hammock, we need to do a little bit more of the coconut on the side. So you know what? Actually, let's keep that for the very end. Okay, for the hammock, instead of using my number 4, I'm going to use the number 2. And I'm getting color directly from my palette, my little cake, mixing it onto the palette, and now we are starting the hammock. So this needs to be like very thin lines, right? So let's start off with doing the guy. No. I almost feel like I want to use a pen. Let's do the guy. So here's his little head. Here's his body. Here's his leg. Now, for those of you who are not very comfortable doing something like this, by all means, like, skip this area, just leave it at the coconuts. It's like the trees, if that's what you want. This is just if you want to make your painting a bit extra different from the rest of the scenic views that, you know, people typically do. And here's the other leg. And now for the bottom, that's fairly easy. You're just kind of swooping it under so it takes on the shape of the hammock. Oh, his torso's kind of big, isn't it? Let's do that. Perfect. And then finally we are going to, I just want to make sure this is perfect or slightly better. And now we're going to go and draw the hammock in. Perfect. And I'm giving this slightly thicker area touching his head and then thinner towards the tree. And then the same thing on this side. Wow, I'm going to have to turn this around, guys, just so I can do it properly. Okay, so we want to start this from his leg. Okay, I'm going to have to start from the tree and going down to the leg. Perfect, just like that. And there we go, we are done. So that was that's the whole thing. Like, I don't even mind the fact that it doesn't have too much of the orange at the bottom, just because all the other details are quite quaint and nice. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought or think. I do have to add the little coconut palm thing coming off to the side here. And in fact, you know what? It would be nice to even add a couple of details like this at the bottom here. So just using the black, I'm just going to kind of add or maybe even if you want to use the blue instead of the black, but I'm just kind of adding these little linear strokes so we have more of that detail happening and it doesn't abruptly end. But again, these exercises I have designed just so you guys can get used to mixing watercolor, getting used to the medium, because it's all about water consistency, color consistency, mixing, all that good stuff, right? And then also getting used to your strokes using the brushes that you have, knowing when there's too much water, when you don't have enough water, things like that. And that's what helps you move along in watercolor. And the other thing is practice, practice, practice. So it means whether you're doing a scenic view, whether you're doing florals, you can take the same techniques that I'm showing you all throughout and you can kind of use it to create whatever else you need to. It's just a matter of getting these ideas in or techniques in and then using some thought to kind of execute it in other elements that you might want to paint. Now these are drying off a lot lighter, which is kind of nice. So I don't mind it as much and it's kind of lighter than typical. I'm just going to add some here and then we will call it quits. So as I was saying previously, before I ended up doing these, let me know, guys, in the comments what you thought of this. If you like this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I do a lot of videos like this and I would love to see your work. So if you're on Instagram, tag me, follow me on Instagram as well. I updates on like what's coming out every week, because I put out a video twice a week actually. And then typically Sundays are for a live session of painting with me. So come check it out, join the community, and have some fun with watercolor as we all sit down and relax and just create something beautiful. Thanks guys for watching, and we'll chat soon. Bye.